Reading, Sun's Heir, Death's Guardian by Engineer Forever.
18. I'll read again, Hermes cheerfully offered. After an ending like that, why wouldn't you want to? Because it made me look like an idiot, Apollo mumbled. Artemis snorted, you are an idiot. Children, Hermes warned jokingly, getting 2 grumbles from the twins. Shaking his head, the god of travelers cleared his throat and began to read. Naruto blinked a few times before looking at the girl clinging to him in sheer terror. So close, Piper teased with a smirk. Talia was red from embarrassment at the situation her other was in. Talia had her eyes closed and her arms wrapped around him while he sat on something hard and was applying chakra to his body to stay on. Looking around, he realized that he was riding on the back of Chuck, the left Hoover Dam angel statue. That was fun, Percy said with a smile. No, it wasn't, disagreed Talia with a frown. He didn't know how he knew the angel's name or how he got here, but that's what he did know about the situation. Looking over, he saw Zoe and Phoebe in the arms of the other angel statue, Hank. Percy and Grover were in Chuck's hands, both looking around and enjoying the sights. Well, how the fuck did we get up here? Naruto asked while scratching his head and trying to remember what happened to get him where he was. Talia groaned and dug her face further into his back. Is it comfy, Talia? Annabeth asked with a coy smile. Talia nibbled her bottom lip and didn't respond to the blonde girl's teasing. Don't remind me, the girl mumbled, trying to ignore the fact she was way above her comfort zone. A good 20,000 feet above it, mind you. Normally, she'd suck it up and try to keep her cool, but Naruto's presence allowed her walls to fall ever so slightly. More like make them non-existent, Piper chimed with a cheeky grin. The hunter grumbled with heated cheeks. Hey there, kid, feeling better? Chuck asked with an amused, yet rusty, chuckle. Is the blonde dude awake? Hank inquired. Both his passengers glanced as far as they could to see if Naruto was up. Grover and Percy were too nerve-wracked or awed to be bothered with checking on the blonde. Naruto rubbed his head before answering, okay, so Chuck and Hank are automatons, that explains a bit. Though, why do I know your names? What in the name of Rhea did I miss? Seeing a chance to distract herself from where she was, Talia started to explain what happened after he broke down from something he thought of. Apollo shook his head in slight pity. After whatever he realized, he went into an autopilot state, which was very bad timing considering the situation that swiftly followed. The skeletal warriors that were brought to life by the general had managed to track Percy and Naruto, consequently finding the rest of the group as well. Surrounded and their strongest fighter, a statement Grover made that was reluctantly agreed with by both hunters, out of commission, Talia prayed for her father's help under Grover's insistence. Well, that sounds vaguely familiar, Percy mumbled. Strongest fighter, Ares mumbled with interest as he began replaying the fights in his head. Which brings Talia's explanation to the 2 automatons currently giving the group a lift to California. Chuck, Naruto's ride, was the first to awaken and with a flap of his wings, which were rusty and made the group, including the autopilot demigod, cover their ears, made the boneheads go flying off the dam roof and into the water. After settling a terrified Talia and unresponsive Naruto on Chuck's back, the 2 automatons took the rest of the group into their hands and took flight. How romantic, Aphrodite gushed, making the hunter groan. It just wouldn't stop. And that was 3 hours ago? Naruto asked, getting Talia to nod her head. Consequently, she glanced down and then buried her face into his shoulder once again. Nico made some kissing noises, getting the red-faced Talia to throw a handful of popcorn at him. As Talia fought down the dreaded upchuck threatening to escape her stomach, Naruto looked around before spotting the bright lights of a specific city. Well, I'll be damned, murmured the blonde as he looked forward. California, Apollo's second state. First being Florida. Damn right, said a grinning Apollo as he flipped his aviators down. Why do you say that? Asked Grover over the rushing wind. Dad's the god of the sun, which sets in the west. You don't get any more west than California. Dad's also the god of medicine, Naruto explained with a sigh, and what's known as a medical herb that's legal here and not in any other state. Oh, Grover said in understanding before he sighed. I still don't understand why that herb is illegal. Pan knows it has done so much good in the past. Very true, my furry friend, the god of medicine nodded. Regular humans tend to get addicted to it and the hallucinogenic feeling they get from smoking it. Personally, I blame the US government's anti-drug paranoia, but that's just me. Other people think it's just bad news. Some don't really care, explained the blonde, although I'm kind of biased because I may have dabbled in the trade for a year. Apollo, Artemis chided her brother in disapproval. Apollo shrugged. What? It wasn't like I told him to, sis. Yeah, Lord Hades wasn't too happy with my, use of vacation time. Of course I wouldn't be, Hades snapped as he narrowed his eyes. And addiction was no laughing matter. Neither was caution for that matter. Ouch, Percy winced. He could only imagine what his mother would do if he started to do drugs. Naruto shivered upon remembering his mother's rage when he let it slip that he tried the hallucinogenic drug. Who knew that Hades had so much soap? And then there was the pan. The blonde reached up and rubbed the back of his head where he was struck several times with a pan that his mother pulled out of who knows where. The same place any girl keeps anything, Annabeth answered smugly. You'll never know. You get vacation time? You smoked pot? Grover and Percy asked, the latter much more surprised than the former. You are such a schoolboy, Percy, commented Talia as she shook her head. Oh, well, sorry about being shocked about your blunt smoking boyfriend, he countered with a roll of his eyes. Hey. Hate to interrupt the conversation, but we're here, Chuck said before Naruto could reply to either of the boys. Chuck and Hank landed atop a building that was flat enough, and thankfully sturdy enough for their weight. The enthusiastic party-searching automatons promptly dropped off the group quickly, both of them excited to stretch their wings in more ways than one. Hephaestus laughed a bit at that. I like them, Naruto said with a smile as they descended the stairs. Hank's got a nice mustache. They didn't have facial hair, pointed out a mildly confused Percy with an arched brow. Neither do you, but I can tell if you got beached and made up a friend named Wilson, that you could grow a fantastic beard which would be rugged, yet charming, Naruto said with a grin. Anyone want to watch Castaway starring Percy Jackson? Leo joked. Percy hummed in thought. What are? You know what? I don't care, Talia sighed out. Percy meanwhile rubbed his chin. You really think so? Percy asked as he fell back with Naruto grinning at him. The blonde scratched his own light fuzz under his lip. No, Annabeth said sternly. Oh come on, Percy whined, thinking about his dad's beard. That thing was cool. No, repeated his girlfriend in the same tone. Percy pouted. Why do you think I'm going for an artist rather than chinstrap? Naruto inquired. Or why Grover has a goatee. Then again, that might not be a choice considering he's a satyr. Screw you, Grover grumbled as he rubbed at his smooth jawline that led to the patch of hair on his chin. Dryads dig the goatee. Oh gods, Grover the ladies' man? Nico blanched. Whoa, 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 everyone stop, Naruto announced before they left the stairs to the streets. Thinking it was something important, they all looked to the wide-eyed blonde as he pointed at Grover with shock written on his face. After a moment of silence, Naruto finally asked, You mean you're actually making moves on nymphs? I know, I was shocked, too, Percy nodded in agreement. Talia, Zoe and Phoebe gained looks of annoyance on their faces while an equally shocked Percy looked at his best friend in surprise. Grover, nervous at being under everyone's gaze, rubbed his arm. Well, it's not every day you find out that your friend is acting out a stereotype, Percy said. Well, yeah, I mean, Look, can we talk about this later? The satyr asked. I just with all the fainting, I was sure that you were too chicken to ask a female out, Naruto said before throwing an arm over Grover's shoulders. His eyes closed and he feigned sniffling. I'm so proud. Percy mimicked him, much to Grover's embarrassment, and leaned on Talia's shoulder. What happened to my cowardly best friend, Talia? I thought we were supposed to know when this sort of thing happens. Percy sniggered along with Talia as Annabeth shook her head at them. Annabeth chided them. Come on guys, grow up. Well, I could, but Talia can't, Percy said with a grin. Watch it, Waterboy, Talia retorted at the shot. Talia, catching onto the game, leaned against her younger cousin and sniffed as well. They just grow up so fast. Unlike Talia, Percy continued with a smirk. I'm warning you, seaweed brain. Now, children, don't fight, Hermes chided with a grin on his face. It's story time. The two looked away as the other demigods snickered. You guys suck, Grover whined as the three burst into laughter. The two hunters were much like the satyr, not amused. They really need to learn to chill a bit. It's the little things, Talia sighed out dramatically. If thou hast the time to make jokes, thou hast time to walk. Now let us go, Zoe commanded before rounding and storming out the fire door. The three laughing demigods felt their amusement die. As Grover slipped out behind Phoebe, Naruto hummed. Zoe really needs to get laid out. It was a joke. Why do you insist on hitting on me? Ow, stop doing that, I'm going to bruise. Unlike the other amused gods and laughing demigods, Artemis looked a bit discouraged at the joke. She lightly hit her twin. This is your fault. He's just telling it like it is, sis, Apollo countered with a grin. He was hit harder after that comment. Stop wording it like that, Talia muttered with a small blush, making everyone snicker a bit at her cross tone. So, here's what we know. We're in San Francisco. Percy started a good hour later as the group walked towards the bay, the worst place for demigods to be. Only if you're Greek, Naruto grumbled before Zoe sharply elbowed him in the side. Ow. Alright, I'll shut up. I'm just saying. Yes he is, Talia said before turning to Artemis. You know, I have never met Diana. Pray you never do. She's so stiff, Apollo shuddered. She is not, his twin argued, unlike a certain someone. Touché. Ignoring the blonde, Percy continued, we're currently going to the San Francisco Bay to find Nerus, who we have never met and have no idea what he looks like. Thou art foolish, Zoe stated with a snort. Phoebe and I hath seen Nerus once before. Oh, great, and we're supposed to trust your memory? Talia grumbled. An old age joke, nice. Nico smirked at Talia, who chuckled a bit at it, too. I'm with Talia-chan on this one. Naruto spoke up. It's had to be, what, over 100 years since Auntie Arte needed to seek out Nerus. Our memories are as clear as day, Uzumaki. You should do well to remember that, Phoebe commented. She continued with, our best bet is to find the foulest-smelling dock inhabitant. That was wonderful, Percy moaned. Oh, wonderful, Naruto moaned with Grover groaning in agreement. The blonde then held a finger up. I have a better idea. Let's have Jackson go get him and we'll all get smoothies. Who's in? Hey, I am not doing the heavy lifting, ya jerk, Percy grunted with a frown. Talia rolled her eyes. You're the only other one who can breathe underwater. Stop defending your boyfriend, Percy grunted once again. Talia smacked the blonde upside the head, getting him to grunt. He turned and glared at her smirking face. I'm getting real sick of that. It's called holding the leash, dude, Leo chimed, getting popcorn in the face as a retort. Then stop acting like an idiot, Talia countered. Naruto scoffed and stuck his nose up. I am the son of the god of the arts. Acting is in my blood, the blonde insisted jokingly. Apollo did a cheering whistle. You tell them, kiddo. Phoebe snorted, as is idiocy. Hey, Apollo indignantly cried out. She's just telling it like it is, Artemis mockingly retorted. Agreed, Zoe said shortly afterward, making Naruto hang his head. You girls are so mean, complained the blonde. Oh, don't listen to those dried-up hags, Naruto, Aphrodite ensured with a smile. Artemis did not look pleased at that remark, not at all. I'm just trying to keep the mood light. Hee, get it, light, because I'm photokinetic? Lame, the demigod said as one. Boo, Grover said softly while cupping his mouth. Ah, go chase a nymph, Naruto shot back, making the satyr blush. And he bounces back, Hazel laughed out. Both of you shut up, we're here, Talia said as the group stopped at the San Francisco Bay docks in order to make a better plan. So now what, we just sniff each homeless guy? Naruto asked, getting irritated from the smell that's slowly leaking itself into his nose, because if that's the case, I'm out. I'm with Naruto on this one, Grover agreed, his own nose scrunching at the scent. This prompted Talia and Zoe to debate over what should be done. While they did, Naruto's trained sense of smell caught a scent that would distract both himself, his mother and his father 10 times over. The scent of ramen. See, I knew he had a problem, Hazel said with a satisfied grin. Well, it was either a food issue or drug issues, Percy chimed. Guess we should be thankful. He should be eating something healthier, Demeter mumbled, getting a roll of the eyes from the other Olympians. Hungry from the flight, as well as bored with the situation at hand, and confident that Jackson couldn't possibly mess up in 5 minutes that it took to get a taste of that bowl of delicious goodness. Jerk, Percy pouted. I don't know, things do get strange around you really fast, Talia teased. His stomach, the third male brain, taking control of his actions, Naruto slipped away and began to chase after the scent. What's 1 and 2, Talia joked, getting the females to laugh at the men, making the males in the chamber all scowl. Only one other took notice of his absence and quickly followed after him. I wonder who, Jason mumbled in interest. Come on, where are you, you delicious delicate bowl of wonders? Naruto mumbled as he sniffed the air. Closing his eyes and sniffing the air, the guardian followed his favorite scent. While following the scent with closed eyes, he bumped into something. Opening his eyes, Naruto looked up and rubbed the back of his neck. Ah, sorry my boy. Dropping his arm and taking a step back warily, Naruto's eyes narrowed at the figure standing in front of him. His unique eyes were glaring at the blank white mask staring down at him. A mask he had heard about from his training trip with the old toad that had taught him for 2.5 years. The Root Anbu mask. The what? Was the chorused question. According to the annotation, Hermes began, Root Anbu are a rogue faction of Konohagakure no Sato's Anbu run by a Danzo Shimura. So basically, these are the bad guys within the village. Naruto mentally sighed as the wonderful scent that was his favorite food faded away. Looks like I'm not getting any ramen. Scent-based genjutsu. Damn it. I really could have used that pick-me-up. Food illusions? Athena inquired. Really? It's kind of sad that he fell for it, Ares said with a smirk. Whoopee, cushion, Apollo retorted with a smirk of his own, making his brother grumble. Namikaze dono. Thank you for falling for my genjutsu. Now please come with me, the root agent said impassively as he reached for the blade on his back. Well, ain't that nice, asking him all kind-like and pulling out his sword. Cute, Ares said as he grinned. Naruto brought his arms up with closed fists as he settled in his beginning stance of Gamaken. There were a few regular mortals around, but the mist didn't disguise shinobi, a side effect he discovered after catching a glimpse of a photo of the fight between himself and Kakashi when he followed the false scent of ramen. He wasn't about to reveal that world, not yet. Now wasn't the time for the technologically advanced to meet the biologically advanced. Athena's eyebrows arched slightly. Biologically advanced? In more ways than one, I'll bet, Aphrodite giggled out suggestively, making Artemis roll her eyes and the demi-goddesses blush at the innuendo. The Root tilted his head. The report stated that you wouldn't do open battle. Wow, that's kinda dumb to listen to reports, especially if they're a few years out of date, said Annabeth as she blinked at the stupidity of it. Reports were wrong, Naruto retorted, popping his knuckles as his stance tightened. Now call your little gang out and let's get it going. Brawl time tilde, Ares sung out with a grin on his face. The Root said nothing but nodded his head and raised a fist. As soon as his fingers opened and 2 other figures appeared, Naruto's first punch flew. Shattering the mask of the first Root agent, Naruto ducked under the swipe of the blade from the other agent to his right. Sensing synchronized blades heading in his direction as he ducked, the blonde raised his arms and used his jacket sleeves to catch the Root blades. Smart move, Jason said with narrowed eyes. He had seen him fight monsters and briefly that other ninja, but these were people not afraid to openly attack someone in the public eye. This was going to get heavy. One of the Root who he blocked spoke softly, material strong enough to stop chakra-enhanced blades. Danzo-sama will want this. You do not steal another's spoil of war, Artemis said as she frowned in disapproval. As goddess of the hunt, that went against a lot of what she stood for. Have him kill his own lion then, Naruto spat before pushing the blades away and throwing a right cross at the unmasked Root. The plain-looking leader avoided the strike with ease, only for Naruto's following left uppercut to nail him in the jaw. The two other root agents kicked at his back, making Naruto stumble forward. Using the forced momentum, Naruto head-butted the apparent leader in the chest. With a satisfying crunch heard, Naruto threw his arms out in order to stop his fall and flipped over the now unconscious root Anbu. "Now that is a way to use your head," Annabeth punned. "Nah, that's how you get ahead in a fight," Leo countered with a grin. "We are not doing this," Talia groaned. "Fine." Now upright, Naruto turned to face the two root agents. He caught the arms of an attempted swipe and punched the root agent in the gut. His superior strength easily bypassed the protective chest armor and left quite the welt on the man's stomach. Naruto felt pressure where the blade of the last root Anbu slashed across his back and spun on his heel to deliver a mask-shattering backhanded fist. The small group of people watching gasped and phones were pulled out. Videos, which would get hits out the wazoo, would be posted later that evening about a mysterious ninja movie being filmed in the slums of Frisco. Apollo rubbed his chin and mused, "Sounds cool." The Anbu with a bruise on his gut stood up and began flipping through hand seals. Naruto was distracted as he delivered a brutal combination of punches to the stunned root agent. "Uzumaki, watch out." Naruto looked to the side and saw Phoebe with her bow drawn in his direction. Ducking and performing a sweep kick that took his current target down with him, the hunter's arrow barely passed over his head and impacted with the left hand of the root Anbu preparing a jutsu. The root grunted and pushed the arrow out, just in time for another arrow to hit him in the head. He dropped for good after that. "Excellent shot, Phoebe," Artemis praised. "Well done." "Not so," Athena argued. "These ninja are not hidden by the mist, and she just left a body in San Francisco." The goddess of the hunt frowned at that and asked, "Well, how was she supposed to know? Besides, these drones would be better dead. It seems more humane." Phoebe relaxed and watched Naruto as he grabbed the throat of his opponent and squeezed. The root managed to slip his feet into Naruto's gut and kick him away. The root kipped back up to his feet and flipped through hand seals. The root leaned back as he inhaled and finished off his hand seals. Seeing that the people were behind him and not moving anytime soon, Naruto braced himself for the incoming attack. Suiten no jutsu, water release, water bullet technique, the root seemed to announce before expelling a large torrent of water that shot right at Naruto. "Well, that's mildly annoying," Poseidon grumbled. "Can everyone use my domain at their leisure in this dimension?" Flipping through his own hand seals, Naruto slammed his hands into the ground. Taiyoten Keke, Kodai Cabe no Jutsu, Sun Release Barrier, Solid Wall Technique. "Awesome, Sun Wall for the win," the sun god grinned cheekily. A large golden light rose from his hands and stopped the incoming water from bypassing him. Sure, the water wouldn't kill him, but the humans behind him were unable to access chakra, and with the way this water was created, there was no guarantee that the mortals would be able to survive the attack. "Fascinating," Athena and Annabeth mumbled under their breaths. Hell, it was almost guaranteed that they would all succumb chakra poisoning and die. It wouldn't be the first time it happened. "Really now?" Apollo asked, wondering more about this poisoning. "Enough, Namikaze Dono," a new voice called out. Naruto looked up and saw another root holding a struggling Phoebe in a one-armed choke hold with his blade pressing against her cheek and drawing blood. "One wrong move and I kill the girl." A hunter turned damsel. How funny, Aphrodite giggled at the irony. Artemis' jaw flexed in irritation at the scene. Talia was gritting her teeth in anger. Leave it to damned mercs to take a hostage. And Naruto did not seem the type to not care about his teammates, a good quality, but was not going to end well right now. "Damn it, I really pissed someone up there off," Naruto murmured before lifting his hands off the ground and glaring at the newcomer. He had auburn hair that was down to his chin, a portion of the hair on the back of his head being pulled into a ponytail that was far longer. His mask was not unmarked, but instead a bland cat-like animal. The only thing that separated his mask from another like it was the green triangle on the top. Clenching his jaw, Naruto stood up and raised his hands in submission. "I surrender, Anbu-san. Release her and I will come willingly, I promise." Talia grunted in disappointment. She knew something like that would happen. The root Anbu remained still before nodding to his previous foe, who then vanished in a body flicker. Naruto sensed the root appear at his back, yet did nothing. His arms were forcefully pulled down behind him and bound. A tag of some sort was attached to either of his wrists, beginning to drain him slowly. He was chopped in the back of the neck as Phoebe called out his surname in warning. "Fucker just took my kid. Those little mortal twats just took my kid," Apollo said in a state of rage. "Language, Apollo," Hestia chided with a warning glare. "Do we kill her?" the lower-ranking root agent asked his apparent superior as he hoisted his village's Jinchuriki onto his shoulders. "He is not your anything," Talia gritted out, getting Apollo to nod with her. Piper shook her head in amusement. Talia was really getting into this, it seemed. "No, she will probably be noticed missing and the information we have on these lands are minimal as it is," the superior replied before bringing his blade's pommel to the base of the struggling Phoebe's head. Phoebe grunted before falling unconscious. "Ass," Talia spat. "Agreed," Artemis said in a frosty tone. "Seconded," Apollo grumbled heatedly. "Come," the one with the green triangle on his mask ordered with a detached tone, "we must return to Danzo-sama." With that, the two vanished by taking to the rooftops with bounds very beyond normal human abilities. "And there's that biological advancement rearing its head again," Annabeth muttered in slight curiosity. Zeus' eyes snapped open from where he lay resting in his and Heir's chambers. It was quiet. Far too quiet. That meant Apollo was working on a prophecy and Hermes was doing his own duties as the rest of Olympus slumbered. However, it was the former's absence that he was the cause of his sudden unease. He blamed it on Artemis' absence. Ever since Artemis was declared missing and Apollo's eldest boy was sent on a quest to retrieve her, his and Leto's son had been acting out of character. Breaking the rules and interacting with his son more than the other gods ever had in the past, Apollo was treading on thin ice. Granted, there was a small part of the king of gods that was pleased to see how this one child was affecting his son, but still Apollo had duties that needed to be done. He wasn't going to take Helios' job when it was clearly given to Apollo for a reason. Why in the name of order Helios chose Apollo, Zeus would never know, but he assumed it was because of the fact Helios and Selene were twins much like Apollo and Artemis were. Now he was starting to question the natural order placed upon the world, and that's when Zeus knew he had to go walk. Like all sentient beings, Zeus loved to be in control and hated to be controlled. However, as a deity, he had to appeal to the otherworldly forces that created his father and mother, the deities that spawned all of the known reality. The entities known as chaos and order, the balance. One does not question the balance, my son. These were the words spoken to him by his mother when he was still growing in secret, hidden from the crooked one. The king of the gods growled and shook his head. He didn't like thinking of the past. Of his own mistakes he made when he was drunk with power. He admits it, Hades said, sounding amused. Zeus scowled. Of course he made mistakes. He was not that arrogant, but like hell he would admit to the other Olympians out loud. Zeus glanced at a bowing nymph as he passed, admiring her form for a brief second before resuming his pace. Hera scowled at her husband, who pointedly made the effort of looking away from her. To find the source of his unease, starting with his troublesome son's chambers. He needed to knock some sense into that boy, sister missing or not. Hell, he had more of a reason to act out seeing as it was one of his daughters missing. Artemis sent her father a slight smile, before looking back to the images that followed along with the story. Calm down, Zeus told himself as he took a breath, not wanting to have what his wife and siblings call a temper tantrum, which he didn't have anymore. Really? Challenged Poseidon with a smirk. A day without you having a fit is the day I know that the universe comes to an end, Hades joked with a wry grin. No one asked either of you, grumbled the king of the gods. And stopped outside of Apollo's temple. A whistling sound alerted him to an incoming object, and Zeus ducked as a bust of Apollo's head flew out, followed by a beam of light that obliterated the stone head. You should watch where you do that, Zeus pointed out to his boy with a pointed finger and frown. Apollo shrugged, his other must be pissed right now. Those motherfuckers, I'll smite them all, they won't find any trace of you when I'm done, Danzo Shimura. This I swear, I'll ensure you have a place to stay in Tartarus. Even Hades will be envious of the torture I will bestow upon you, you cocksucking, warmongering son of a bitch. Then, oh then, I'll gleefully hand you over to Kashina and let her deal with what remains of you." "Damn," Hermes said after reading the passage, "you're really pissed." "Tell me about it," Apollo said with raised brows. He didn't blow his top that often, so seeing it from another perspective was very surprising. Hearing Apollo rage loud enough to shake Olympus, Zeus almost pitied whoever this Danzo Shimura was. "Everyone should. It will be marked in history of the man who all should pity from my wrath," Apollo said in an eerily calm tone. And Zeus unanimously decided that he most certainly would speak with Apollo later after he's calmed down. "I like that plan," Zeus said with a nod, agreeing with his other. Zeus abruptly turned around and shuddered. Apollo had to have gotten that temper from Leto. "Well, now that's just ridiculous," Hades chuckled out, giving his brother a sly glance. "If anything, Apollo took more from you than he should have." "Watch your tone, Hades," Zeus warned with a frown. Poseidon smirked at his brother's argument. "I'm just saying," Hades said with a bit of mirth. "Give it here, Hermes," Apollo muttered with annoyance lacing his tone. "I have got to see how this turns out." "All yours," Hermes said as he handed the god of the sun the book. Frank was huffing over the monocle, staring at the rodent bastard he hand-beaten to near death. It was a long and tiring battle. The drove after droves of gerbil cannon fodder block him off part way as the monocle fire his laser beam at the Canadian. But with quick thinking, a few well-placed shots from his bow, and his shape-shifting powers, he had won. You think you have won, Mr. Bond? No, Mr. Jong," the monocle coughed out with gerbil blood staining the floor. Frank froze. He said his name. The monocle pulled out a small pellet-like object with a red button on it. "This is the day you may have sent me back, Frank Jong, but I will take all with me." The cried out crazily and squeezed the button. The enter base started to flash red. "That was the self-destruction button, Mr. Frank. You will die, no matter what." "In 1 minute," he cackled maddeningly. Frank turned around and made a mad dash as he turned into a cheetah so he could escape. "Goodbye, Frank Jong, you dumbass Roman," Monocle said to himself, and his eyes closed. Frank got out of the base as it blew up behind him. He stood up and brushed the debris off of him and turned east, his target still in mind. After all, he was not just anybody, he was just a kid named Frank, a half-blood of war. 19. Apollo immediately started to read, eager to find out what happened next. Percy blinked before he looked at the cow-like sea creature crooning at him in order to be pet. "So Bessie is some sort of important creature?" All of the gods, even his father, turned to Percy as if he was an idiot. The boy looked away sheepishly. Zoe pinched the bridge of her nose in sheer disbelief of the fact that the son of Poseidon had no idea when he was near the Ophiotauruses, a sea monster that was also known as the bane of Olympus. Shaking her head, she wondered how this boy was clever enough to outsmart Nereus, yet couldn't wrap his head around the fact that a creature he saved was in fact a monster that was notorious for nearly ending the god's reign. "I never really paid much attention as class," the green-eyed boy said in an effort to save face. "And that makes it so much better?" Annabeth asked incredulously. "Yes, how are you this dumb?" Talia asked while resisting the urge to choke her cousin out. "Do it, it'll make you feel better," Talia whispered to her other. "Hey." The hunter rolled her eyes. "Oh, you know it's true. And its name isn't Bessie, it. Actually, it is a he," Grover chirped up before squatting down and patting the brown-eyed sea creature on its head. "And he happens to like the name Bessie, believe it or not. He also wants you to respect his life choices." "Wow, didn't see that coming," Piper said as she blinked, a sea cow with attitude. "The Ophiotauros is the creature that when killed and burned, grants those that do so the power to kill the gods," Zoe said with an exhausted tone. The gods shifted uncomfortably at that, before looking around and noticed her fellow hunter running towards them. Phoebe?" The girl in question came to a stop with a pant. "Zoe, I have urgent news." "Where have you been?" Talia asked, tired of trying to explain the situation to her cousin. She did a quick head count, and upon finding a certain mop of blonde was missing, Talia then asked, And where's Naruto? Uzumaki's been kidnapped, Phoebe said before spotting the cow-like head of Bessie. Did I miss something important? Wow, nice deflection from the bomb she just dropped, Hazel commented. Oh, other Talia is going to flip, Annabeth joked. Hey, you would too if it was your kelp head, the hunter argued weakly. True, the wise girl agreed. What do you mean Naruto's be kidnapped? Talia demanded, grabbing Phoebe by the collar of her cloak. Who took him and why didn't you stop them? Someone hit the switch, Tilda. Nico sang out at the scene. Get off of me, Phoebe demanded while pushing Talia off of her. I don't know who they were, but they had strange white masks. Uzumaki seemed to know them. Everyone seems to, Jason joked. Like a man whore, but less whoring, Hermes pointed out with a grin. I honestly wouldn't see any less of him if he was, Apollo admitted. I am really starting to get sick of his damn prophecy, Talia growled to no one in particular before looking at Zoe, who was the only other level-headed person aside from the blonde idiot that was currently missing. Crossing her arms and pushing her pride down, she asked, so what do we do? Talia grumbled a bit while Hades grinned at his youngest brother. Why can't you do that? Zeus looked away with a pout. Zoe arched a brow and Talia scowled before explaining herself. Look, I don't want to look to you for answers, but Whiskers did make you the leader in case anything happened to him. Again, why can't you do that? Hades asked slyly. Oh, go count your gems, the king of Olympus retorted. When did he do that? Percy asked Grover. Grover looked back at his friend, back at Hephaestus' junkyard. Oh right, Percy nodded in remembrance before he felt Bessie squirm out from under his hand. Hey, Bessie? Where are you going? Don't let the Ophiuchus escape, Zoe exclaimed as they ran after the creature. Bessie swam alongside the wall of the docks before taking a left into a large sewer drain. The group shared a look. Just so you know, Waterboy, this is your fault, Talia growled before they began searching for a manhole. It totally is, Talia grunted in agreement. Hey, I can't control Bessie, Percy argued to the hunter. Percy sighed and hung his head, momentarily wishing he just stayed back at camp and away from Talia's ire. He wondered how the campers were doing at the moment. And, scene change, Leo said knowingly. Nico sat up in his bed, his eyes wide open and screamed, Naruto, watch out. Hey, I'm up, Nico smiled, but frowned. He sighed and shook his head. Damn, it was a demigod dream. I hate those, Percy said with an understanding nod of agreement. His exclamation woke his sister up and she groaned. Bianca flicked her lamp on and glared tiredly at her younger brother before she addressed him. Nico, why are you screaming at 1 a.m? I had a dream that Naruto was fighting some giant octopus bull monster bigger than a mountain, the boy explained with wide eyes. Naruto was kicking its butt when some guy wearing an orange mask appeared and stabbed him through the shoulder. Huh, making note of that, Apollo said, jotting it down on a memo pad with the current prophecy of the story. Go back to sleep, Nico, it was just a dream. Bianca groaned as she turned the light off. Did no one explain demigod dreams to her yet? Annabeth asked. Well, Naruto would have, I guess, but he's busy at the moment, Nico snarked to the blonde. Falling back to her pillow, the olive-skinned girl grumbled, Sides, you interrupted my dream. But what if Naruto's in trouble? Nico asked as he turned on his own lamp and let his imagination run wild. He could be bleeding out at this very minute. Well, he was kidnapped. Good call, not emo, Nico, Talia nodded with a smile. Not emo, Nico argued feebly with a frown. Groaning, his sister tiredly returned, Nico, what did Chiron say yesterday after dinner? Get some sleep because we have to train later? Nico recalled sheepishly. They had gotten used to the training relatively fast, but Bianca chalked it up to their father being the god of sadists. Hades frowned at that. Which was completely accurate, not that she knew that, though. The gods snickered at the lord of the underworld. And what would Naruto want us to do? Bianca asked with exhaustion lacing her voice. She really hated being the responsible older sibling. Seriously, couldn't the Oracle have chosen someone else? Naruto was a blessing in Bianca's opinion. In more than one way. Nico winced slightly at that, but took it in stride. It was better than her being with the hunters, and that's all that mattered. I wonder what the in more than one way is, Aphrodite said in a suggestive tone. No, Hades said sternly to the love goddess. She just pouted at that. Sleep and then train? Guessed the younger boy. There ya go, sport, yawned out the older girl. Closing her eyes, Bianca finished with, now turn the lamp off and go. 2. Sleep. That is scarily accurate, Nico mumbled. Fine, disappointedly replied Nico. He turned his light off before remembering something he heard Bianca say. What were you dreaming about? A familiar pair of blue eyes and a charming smile flashed in her mind, making Bianca flush before she growled, just go to sleep, Nico. Aphrodite just gave a saucy grin to Hades, who was frowning big time along with Nico. The son of Hades crossed his arms and grumbled in disapproval. Nico winced and rolled on his side. Just as his eyes began to close, Nico did whisper a prayer. Dad, if you can hear me, please help Naruto. Ah, his first prayer to his parent, Percy sniggered. He wiped away an imaginary tear. They grow up so fast. Oh, go get swimmer's ear, Nico shot back irate. Gods, the back of my neck is killing me, Naruto mumbled as he woke up. His shoulders were strained and looking up he could see his arms chained to a pipe above his head. Another interesting observation was that his shirt and jacket were both removed, and yet his bracelet wasn't. Odd. No, sexy, Aphrodite corrected with a grin. Mom, Piper cried out with pink cheeks. Sweetie, a hunk in chains is always sexy, the goddess of love stated as she looked at the picture, memorizing it for later. Looking around, he noticed that he was in an underground room, somewhere in the sewers if he recognized the smell correctly. The room was too small for him to spam out clones like no tomorrow and would only hinder him in the off chance he was outnumbered by a good 20-to-1 ratio. But what are the odds of that? Foreshadowing, calling it now, Leo announced with a grin. Ah, you are conscious, an elderly man's voice murmured, getting Naruto's attention. Looking up he saw a bandaged man hobble out of the shadows with a large cane in his left hand. This was Shimura Danzo, the Warhawk of Konoha's council. Which makes one wonder why he was in the United States of America, also making the blonde wonder how he got here in the first place. The leader of Root arched his visible brow as he examined the blonde before asking, where is it? Where's what, my shirt? If anyone should be asking that question, it should be me. Not some fugly old cripple, Naruto replied with annoyance. Ah, the snark, I wonder where that comes from, Ares asked sarcastically, making Apollo scowl at him. Jostling his chains, the blonde then asked, not taking any chances and pulling the completely cliché torture procedure out. Wow, you guys are taking this seriously. Wow, he doesn't even care if he's about to be tortured for something? Piper asked. It's something soldiers are trained to do, Jason told his girlfriend, that or just keep saying basic info of himself. Enough games, boy, where is the nine tails? Danzo demanded an answer, his aura of authority falling off him in waves. However, he had forgotten one thing about the boy in front of him. He was part Uzumaki, and those motherfuckers were even more stubborn than oxen. He is also Sunspot's kid, Ares said, egging on the reading god. Hey. Oh, is that all? Why didn't you just say so? Naruto replied with a smile. It's simple really, finding the nine tails. Just go into the abandoned mansion and walk around for a bit. Be sure to have plenty of Pokeba. Ow, take a joke, asshole. Percy, Piper and Leo snickered. Ah, Pokemon Red and Blue, such a lifetime ago. The Root agent that had punched him in the gut stepped back to the side. Danzo didn't look amused and came closer. The commander of Root needed to find the Kyuubi and fast. Before that Sannin realized the Uchiha brat failed in his assassination attempt. Sure, he lost the Mokuton arm, but at least he was still alive. Not for long I hope, Artemis said with a frown. She did not like this man at all. He was one of the examples of men she detested, the power-hungry kind. I hear ya, Arte, her brother said in agreement as he nodded. I'm not in the mood to play, boy, you will tell me where the beast is. Danzo sternly stated, his hidden Sharingan starting to spin rapidly. Naruto felt the beginning of hypnosis and bit down on his lip hard enough to draw blood. Kinky, Aphrodite said with a grin. Mom. Ha, nice try, dickwad, but I'm not as stupid as I used to be, the blonde demigod said with a smirk. Well, at least he acknowledges his faults. Hephaestus mumbled, that should count for something, I guess. Go weld metal, Apollo mumbled. He then looked at his arms. And what are these? Chakra seals? Come on, Shimura, I'm an Uzumaki. This is something we do when we're bored. Oh, take that mummy man, Hermes cheered. His arms flashed bright blue before 2 slips of paper floated down. Danzo's scowl tightened and several more root fell into the room. Naruto closed his eyes and began murmuring to himself. Danzo glared at the brat and looked at his highest-ranking agent, Fu. Do it. Do what? Annabeth wondered aloud. Do the hustle, Leo called out, getting a few pretzels thrown in his face. Yes, Danzo-sama, the auburn-haired agent from before said before he flipped through several hand seals. Finishing on a very recognizable seal known well by the Yamanaka clan, Fu called out, Shintenshin no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique. A mind invasion technique? Athena asked in interest, her daughter also looking intrigued. As Fu's body collapsed to the ground, his mind was absorbed into Naruto's. This was the failsafe in the case that the Namikaze Uzumaki heir proved difficult. A small tweak in loyalty here, a few altered memories there and voila, a new member of Root ready to go. Apollo gripped the book tightly and a growl came out of his mouth. However, he was not prepared to meet 3 10 feet tall men. Yes, men would be the most logical label for them. Who is in his mind? Zeus asked sternly. One of the men looked like the Yondaime, which put Fu on guard, but the other 2 were very strange. Well, we are all in our kids in some way, Apollo said with a grin. The darker, more sinister-looking man looked like their contact in the New World, but with long raven hair and madness drifting off him in waves. His pale skin was hidden by a dark, yet regal robe and he was holding twin sickles that were a disturbing shade of purple and were connected by a chain. Well, I cannot have my worker mind controlled. That just makes it personal, Hades sniffed nonchalantly. The third man was barely labeled such, seeing as he had the lower legs of a goat and the horns of one as well. This looked to be the easiest target as he looked frail and like the smallest of blows could kill him. Like the others though, there was a certain aura to him that Fu couldn't place. Pan? Hermes said in surprise. A mortal, what does he think he's doing here? The Dark One asked. The sickly half-human spoke next with a few coughs. I believe he came here to subvert Naruto. Over my dead body, Namikaze snarled, drawing a 3-pronged kunai. Damn right, Apollo said to his other. Fu was slightly concerned, but only for the mission. These manifestations must be aspects of the blonde after his tenet was released. Manifestations? Hades said in a chilling tone with a frown, impudent mortal. The Dark One chuckled and smirked at the tense Fu. He thinks he can face us. I don't believe he knows how deep a grave he's dug himself. Indeed, the Rich One said. Maybe we should show him just how deep it is, Namikaze mused as his eyes turned from their normal cerulean blue to a shining gold. The Dark One barked out a laugh. Ho, ho, such anger in you, my nephew. Perhaps my brother had given you more than a healthy lust. As the other Olympians laughed, Apollo chuckled weakly and his father blanched at that. Artemis groaned as she palmed her face in slight embarrassment. The half-human coughed violently, to the point that a golden liquid came from the corner of his mouth. Hermes gained a concerned look. And when he stopped he spoke again, I must go. I cannot maintain Naruto's transformation and this projection. Farewell my uncle, Lord Hades. Tell my father not to worry. It's okay, Hermes said softly to himself, glad his child still worried about him even with him dying. Namikaze's gaze softened in the Dark One, Hades, nodded in the fading figure's direction. Once the half-human had vanished, Namikaze glared back in Fu's direction. Now, what is your purpose here, Yamanaka? My mission is to subvert Naruto Namikaze in order to make it easier for him to come to Root, Fu explained despite himself. For the first time in a long time, he gained a look of shock. Hades chuckled darkly once more, making him be honest. I'm impressed, nephew. Now watch as a true master makes the pig squeal. The darker being sneered before tossing both sickles at Fu. Fu's look of shock became more pronounced as a light blue aura appeared around his manifestation when the blades pierced his skin. I have never seen those before, Hades mumbled as he sat forward with interest. I have, Apollo said as he stopped reading, God of War 3 for the PlayStation 3. Loved that game, great ending. Even if most of us died. Ares scowled and crossed his arms. He was not a fan of the series after the first one. It was a very misleading title. What is this? Fu found himself asking. Hades laughed. This will be the first time I obtain a soul from the hidden lands, Hades chuckled, aside from the boy of course. Now, do what you want to, nephew. The moment I pull the soul his body dies for good, and I gain control of another dead realm. Thanatos claims be damned. Gladly, now hold still you little bastard, Namikaze said once more before diving at Fu's body. Fu heard himself crying out before all that remained was him and Hades. Hades' grin widened to insane proportions. I am not insane, Hades grunted. It's time for your torture to begin. Boo, jeered Hades' brothers at the lame line. Oh, be silent, I was trying to be terrifying, defended the rich one. You mean failing to be, said Poseidon as he rolled his eyes. Oh, go sing with a mermaid and a crab, retorted Hades with a scowl. Fu's eyes snapped open and an uncharacteristic smirk crossed his face as he heard the sounds of chains breaking. He kipped up to his feet and ducked as a nameless root agent went flying towards him. Naruto was currently fighting off the entirety of Danzo's forces while in Sage mode, which explained why Pan couldn't hold his manifestation. Yes it does, it is quite interesting. I have never seen a mortal use a nature blessing from Pan, Athena spoke in interest. Maybe we'll see more during the summer, Annabeth said to her mother, who nodded in agreement. Fu turned and found his target lingering in the shadows, watching patiently. He didn't even glance in Fu's direction. The arrogance. Mortals tend to be, Dionysus said with small sneer. Well, perfect, the being possessing Fu's body thought as the body's smirk widened even further. Skin cracked upon doing so and the possessed human grabbed Naruto's removed bow, flicking it open with ease. Danzo still refused to take notice and Fu's grin became splitting, literally tearing the flesh as the god hiding in it overpowered the body. Haven't seen or heard of any of us doing that for centuries, Ares commented. Back in the old days, sure, but now? Nope. An arrow was pulled from the now free blonde's quiver in his free hand. Danzo looked at Fu when his slightly out of practice hearing caught wind of a bowstring being pulled tight. By the time his brain registered what was happening, the arrow was released and on its way. Fu's eyes cracked, revealing a blue eye with a miniature sun not too different from the blonde currently fending off the Anbu a little bit away. Dead Tilda, Apollo said as he grinned with glee. Seems too humane for him, Talia stated, getting her half-brother to nod with her. But it was such a short window to do something. Danzo barely had enough time to see the very familiar eye that was mocking him earlier stare at him. His bandaged eye widened as it realized the trajectory and in the split second before it impacted, he swore he heard the Yondaime Hokage speak to him. Don't fuck with my family. Damn right fucker. Apollo, I won't warn you again, Hestia snapped to her nephew. Fu's decomposing body had the pleasure to witness the arrow impale the old warhawk right in his illegally implanted Sharingan eye. A magical eye? Percy wondered. Naruto clapped his hands around an incoming Tonto, slightly cutting his hands, before wrestling the blade out of his opponent's hands. He spun the blade around and used it to fend off another three. Holding the three opposing blades back with his enhanced strength thanks to Sage Mode, Naruto then brought his other arm down and shattered the steel like it was glass, unfortunately breaking his blade as well. Nice, Nico grinned. This is like some kung fu movie, but better. While the breaking of their blades distracted the three root, Naruto spun on the ball of his right foot, bringing around the heel of his left in a brutal reverse roundhouse that snapped the necks of his opponents. A kick that broke three necks at once? Jason gaped a bit. Now that is impressive. 3 down, yay, that's 17 left. Huh, what do you know? 20-1, thought the son of Apollo with a grimace, as he muttered immediately afterwards, well, fuck me. And there's that Apollo foresight, Hermes snickered as Leo pumped his fist for the accurate guess. He threw his right fist into the gut of the unarmed Root and then drilled his elbow into the back of the Root's head. Another grunt came at him from the side and was promptly introduced to a snap kick that earned the Root an introduction to the wall. As the Root started to get up, another was sent flying in his direction thanks to Naruto's ADHD. Gotta love those reflexes honed by a ninja village. And coupled with demigods, it sounds like a killer combo, Annabeth theorized. Ares snickered at the unintentional joke. While the two other Root broke through the brick, and the stench of sewage came flying in from the new hole, Naruto caught the fists of two other Root agents, pulling them in and wrapping his arms around theirs. His hands slipped back through under their arms and grabbed the base of their necks. The blonde reared his head back along with those of the Root agents before they collided. The two agents were now dead thanks to Naruto's enhanced strength. That was impressive, Ares admitted. A bit too violent, though, Athena muttered. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like him to ask them to surrender nicely? The god of war mocked. Athena narrowed her eyes and opened her mouth to retort, but both were cut off by Zeus' clearing throat. Naruto used his new body shields to catch the kunai of the next four foes. Twisting the corpses around, the blonde pulled them back and tossed them at his attackers. Three agents were knocked back and followed two of their companions by flying through the brick wall. The blonde demigod caught the survivor's incoming swipe by the arm, only to get slashed by another foe across the back. Ouch, watch your back, dude, Leo said as he winced. Naruto cried out and flashed away to another corner, putting his back to the wall and glaring at the remaining 10 Root agents. He wasn't surprised they had managed to cut him, but he did scold himself for forgetting that he was particularly vulnerable. Grabbing his bracelet, Naruto mentally asked for some help. A light red glow encased his back and Naruto grinned. So his shield amplifies the vitakinesis, Athena mused. That explains the earlier phenomenon. Roar for me, he said before the red light blinded his foes. Naruto took advantage of their blindness and unsheathed his blade. He spun the hold on his sword around so that he was holding it in a reversed grip before sliding the blade through a slit near the edge of his forearm. The edge of his shield became sharper as 5 inches of the blade, including the tip, pierced through the sheath as it was designed to. What is that thing? A hack's weapon? Ares mumbled in slight jealousy. Points for lingo, but you lost some for jealousy at the awesome, Apollo said with a grin. This was the incomplete sage arm, an impromptu way to mimic the powerful boost he got without sacrificing a limb. The blonde didn't want to make Talia mad at him again. Damn right, Talia agreed. Because he might not get kisses then, Nico mumbled with a smirk, getting a punch to the shoulder for his comment. Ow. Now, Naruto started as he cracked his neck. Let's rock. He raced forward and pulled his right arm back before diving into the fray. As his arm swung and doled out damage, he wondered if the others had noticed his absence. Hopefully they did the smart thing and focused on anti-arte. Ooh, you all gonna be in trouble, Nico teased the others of those on the quest, getting snacks thrown at him for it. Seriously, he was a big boy. He could handle himself, yow. Apparently not, Artemis said with a small smirk, like someone else I know. You should be a comedian, Apollo mumbled in retaliation before returning his attention to the story. All right, that does it. No more Mr. Nice Demigod. Ah, Ares moaned as the page turned and the violence faded from the screen. Percy, your pet, sucks. Talia snapped as she avoided stepping in some sort of goop that was on the ground. They had managed to find a manhole and climbed down to follow the Ophiuchus through the sewers. Currently, Percy and Zoe were right behind Bessie, with Phoebe close behind them. Talia and Grover were holding up the rear due to Talia's recently developed hatred of cramped spaces, remember the tunnel, and Grover's hypersensitive senses were kicking his ass. Yeesh, that has to suck, Leo sympathized. Hey, lay off Bessie. He's got a good reason to lead us down here, Percy shot back before looking worriedly at the Ophiuchus. I think. Oh, he thinks, said Talia as she rolled her eyes. Real reassuring there, Jackson, Phoebe murmured. You tell him, Phoebe, the hunter agreed. I think I'm gonna puke, Grover groaned and leaned against the sewer wall. Opan. Please help me get through this hell. Come on, Talia said, grabbing the satyr's arm and hoisting it over her shoulder. She wasn't a fan of the smell either, but she could only imagine what Grover was going through. As much as it pains me to admit it, Grace is correct, Zoe groaned. Wow, talk about dramatic, Piper smirked while Talia puffed out her chest in pride. We've been down here, following the bane of Olympus for Artemis knows how long, and still no sign of Uzumaki. As soon as she said that, the wall just ahead of her and Percy exploded and 2 bodies flew from the hole. Bessie dove under the sewage water as the 2 white-masked bodies slammed into the wall. The group stumbled backwards as they heard the sounds of slicing before an armless white-masked body flew out. Talk about brutality, Ares grinned at the sheer viciousness of the blonde boy's assault. Phoebe and Zoe immediately readied their bows while Talia and Percy pulled out their spear and sword respectively. Talia and Zoe shared a look before they nodded and the 2 blade-bearing demigods entered the hole first. They stopped immediately afterwards, quickly ran into by the following hunters while Grover peeked out from behind cover. Needless to say, they were all shocked by what they saw. When the image changed there was an unanimous wince for the poor soul that was facing against the protagonist. Naruto grabbed the shoulder of the Aburame root member that had stayed back to attempt to drain him of his chakra or poison him and shoved his blade into the man's stomach with a yell. Blood was drying over his exposed torso and small wounds he received were sealing shut. Twisting his right arm, Naruto grunted before pulling the weapon out. No sooner had he done so did he check the room for survivors. Always the smart play, Ares said with a nod along with Athena. It was one of the few things they agreed on. His eyes met the faces of the surprised 5 people that had trudged through the sewer in order to find him. To their shock, he suddenly brought his left arm up and pulled his bladed shield across it, drawing blood. The wound immediately healed and Naruto sighed in relief before grinning. Probably checking if it was another illusion, Artemis guessed. Dibs on the first shower, he said jovially, failing spectacularly at making them laugh. Yeah. No one would laugh after stumbling across a guy caked in blood and surrounded by dead bodies, Percy said. Shrugging, he patted the fox head of his shield. Thanks Q. We're good though. The shield vanished in a flash of light and dark giggling could be heard echoing in the room. Needless to say, the Kyuubi no Kitsune was more than pleased with how this event turned out. Chaos is his nature. After all he is a Kitsune. Oh joy, Apollo mumbled, getting a few confused looks. Sighing, he lowered the book and explained, Kitsunes are fox spirits revered in Japanese culture as tricksters and bad omens. So basically a little 4-legged Hermes? Demeter asked, getting a mocking laugh from the god in question. Naruto went to the table that held his things, absently wondering why Danzo hadn't sealed the items away. Pulling the Nemean lion's pelt jacket on, foregoing dirtying his shirt, Naruto looked around for his bow. He found it in the hands of the auburn-haired root, whose face was cracked like an eggshell. Following the empty eye socket's gaze, Naruto found himself staring at a very satisfying sight. Danzo Shimura lay dead with an arrow in his head, rhyme intended. Apollo sniggered, serves him right. Naruto chuckled in amusement after prying his bow free of the root's hand. Killed by his own man with the demon Cantainer's bow. The only way it could have been better if it was his parents, who utterly despised the Warhawk, who had done the old codger in. He could see what Danzo hid under the bandages and he became disgusted. Naruto went to grab the arrow in order to retrieve it when he noticed what type it was. A smirk crossed his face and he simply released the arrow, flicking the switch on the knock before walking back towards the group. He really likes explosions, Piper pointed out. Explosions are cool, Leo defended, Nico and Percy nodding in agreement. So, Naruto started, before he was cut off by the minute explosion that caked his back and some of the others' faces with remains of Danzo Shimura's head. Ignoring what had just happened, Naruto decided to ask, what did I miss? Ha, nice way to play it cool, kiddo. Apollo cheered, who wants to read next? Maybe Talia should read again, Aphrodite suggested innocently. Pass, the hunter immediately replied, her cheeks flushing lightly in embarrassment. Frank was currently in Illinois. After the Gerbisode as he called it, he wanted to relax, but his quest to the east could not be stopped. "Whoa little dude, where's the fire?" a hippie-toned voice asked. Frank turned to see a man riding the wind itself, and he was very funky fresh looking. Olympus, the Roman. You do know that little Romans stay in Cali, right? The clearly God-man said. But my friends are there. Oh yeah, them. Yeah they are. How do you know? Oh, I'm Zephyrus by the way. So they are there, Frank said in triumph, and hi sir. You really need to chill kid, Zephyrus said to him with a head shake. Ride a cloud or something. I don't have Tim. I said ride a cloud, the god said in a stern tone, which sounded way out of character. Yes sir, the Roman caved fast. Good, let me help ya, he said back in his hippie tone. XX. I'll read it, offered Annabeth with a bit of excitement. Percy sighed, seeing as he wouldn't be able to stop it, and passed the book from the god of sun to his girlfriend. Naruto tilted his head as he looked at the new member of their group. They had left the sewers with gusto after Naruto collapsed the room he was chained in. Aw overkill, Ares said fondly. They had regrouped at the docks, where Percy manipulated the water to wash the smell off of them, or in Naruto's case, the blood. Aside from feeling some form of satisfaction at doing the deed, Percy. Petty payback? Really, Percy? Annabeth frowned. Percy just grinned at her. Did note that Talia had blushed brightly enough to be seen in the dimly lit dock area after Naruto's bare torso got drenched. The demigods just turned to Talia grinning. Talia kept a straight face, but she couldn't hide the reddening of her cheeks. Ooh, look at that definition, Aphrodite purred with a grin, if you wouldn't mind, Talia. He's in another dimension, Artemis cut off with a roll of her eyes. After getting through the usual teasing and threatening banter that usually followed Talia's embarrassment. Oh come on, it's routine now, Talia shouted in dismay. Talia, Zoe, Phoebe and Grover left to get some food and speculate on where Artemis would be, leaving Naruto and Percy to sit with the Ophiuchus at the docks while they waited for the others to return. Bessie mimicked the older demigod's action, both keeping their eyes locked on the other. Epic staring contest, Leo sniggered out. After a few minutes of silent staring, the blonde teen grinned and Bessie let out a low croon as Naruto reached out and ruffled the mane between his horns. So this is what has Raijiji and the others all wigged out, huh? Naruto said with a chuckle. Zeus huffed at the notion. Aw, he's just a big softy. It's not his fault that his innards have the power to destroy Olympus, isn't that right Osu-kun? He does bring up a point, Athena spoke. Osu-kun? Percy asked as he crouched down and stroked the furry part of Bessie's back. Naruto grinned as he explained, bull in Japanese. The kun suffix is a term of endearment when talking to a male. Bessie here is like a big dog. He's not as cute as Ranger, I'll admit, but still, saying Bessie-kun just rolls off the tongue funny. Bessie, Talia chuckled at the stupid name her cousin gave the cow. Bessie crooned again as the blonde continued to pet him and nuzzled into his hand. The blonde chuckled again and grinned at an amused Percy. So it took your one guess to figure out what Bessie was, huh? Surprised you didn't use it to find Auntie Arte. Well, I figured that finding Artemis would be easier if we knew what she was hunting, admitted the raven-haired teen, and you know, the Bane of Olympus will show the trail. A rare smart Percy moment, Nico grinned. Scratching behind the Ophiuchus's ear, Naruto hummed in agreement before looking off into the distance. He blinked for a second before he froze. Bessie crooned in annoyance and nudged at his arm, urging him to continue. He must know how to give a good hair rub, Percy joked, since Bessie only liked him at the time. Percy followed the older teen's gaze and equally froze. Heading their way was a boat with armed men and a very familiar teacher by the name of Thorn. Uh-oh, Percy said nervously. Jackson, Naruto started as he slowly stood up. Bessie swiveled around and crooned in worry before he dove under the water. Yeah, I'll go get the others, Percy replied before running off to get the brainstorming 4. Percy snorted at the name. Brainstorming was not a Talia thing. More like hit and break. Talia had the sudden urge to punch Percy. Naruto reached behind him and pulled out his bow. Preparing an arrow, Naruto pulled it back and flicked the nock, igniting the arrow. The teen loved his uncle's Greek fire arrows and momentarily wondered what he would do to pay him back. "We'll have to see," the smith god said. "Like I'm going to let you fuckers get near the coast," Naruto thought as he aimed upwards and let the arrow fly. Holstering his bow, Naruto then brought his hands together and flipped through several familiar hand seals to properly channel the chakra before he announced his attack. Ninpo. Yajirushi mo Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Ninja art. Burning arrow shadow clone technique. The burning arrow in the sky suddenly shone before many others appeared next to it, moving at the same speed and in the same direction. "Oh," Apollo said in a bit of envy. Looking to his twin, he asked, "Why can't we do that?" "It's impractical on a hunt," Artemis snorted, "and you have no use for it." "Archery contests," Apollo argued with a grin, "sport." "Then you should figure it out yourself," Artemis retorted, making her lazy brother pout. As the arrows increased, the people on the incoming boat tensed. Naruto heard cries of evasive action and look out before his arrows came down in a rain of hellfire. The boat burst into flames and screams were heard coming from it. Naruto felt he mist coil around him and the boat and hoped for the best outcome for any mortals watching. "You see, Johnson, he was able to handle it," the madness god sniffed. Percy just grumbled a bit. He watched as several men tried to dive into the water to douse the fire that threatened to consume them, only for the San Francisco Bay to ignite where they landed. "Ah, Greek fire, the best kind," Nico said as he grinned. As the others ran back to the docks, they found themselves staring at a bonfire on the water. Naruto watched through a detached filter before he spotted something swimming towards him. Grabbing another arrow, Naruto prepared his bow just as the entity came up for air. A familiar, scowling, manticore broke the surface in an impressive leap. "You don't jump into the air, it just leaves you open for a bow," Apollo laughed at the monster. "Die," exclaimed the monster as it came closer. His plan was ruined, since without the proper force that had accompanied him on the ship he couldn't surround the brats. "Like how Peter let happen," Dionysus said. "And the sole reason was that damn, infernal, annoying, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, son of Apollo." "Wow, Thorn really hates him," Talia laughed with a grin. "Pass," Naruto replied before he released his arrow. In slow motion, the arrow whirred mechanically before the arrowhead separated, becoming a triangular trident, and sparked. In a split second, the new arrowhead was caked in electricity from the excess lightning of his grandfather's master bolt. "Wait, what?" Zeus said in surprise. Thorn's transformed face turned from rage into horror as the arrow drew closer and Naruto's detached look turned into a feral smirk. "You were always fair game," said the blonde demigod lowly, the image of his aunt and father overshadowing him with similar smirks on their faces and bows of their own in their hands. It was the smirk of a satisfied predator that successfully trapped the prey. "Wow, he even has our smirk, nice," Apollo grinned. Talia turned to her lady and said, "You do have a smirk when you bag a monster." Artemis flushed a bit. "No," Thorn cried out before the arrow flew into his neck and he landed on the dock. His body convulsed as the electricity danced across the body. To the surprise of the others, bar Naruto, Thorn didn't immediately dissolve into golden dust. "A setting for the power?" Hephaestus mused. "Must be from some of my spare conduits." "Your what?" Zeus asked with furrowed brows. "Let's end this," Talia growled, spinning her spear around and pulling it back to drive it through Thorn's head. "No," Naruto exclaimed, grabbing her arms and keeping her from killing the monster. Straining to keep from hurting the girl while also keeping the beast alive, Naruto grunted out, "We have to use him to find Auntie Arte." "We've got the Ophiuchus, the bane of Olympus with show the trail," Phoebe replied while she and Zoe prepared an arrow to keep trained on the downed monster while Percy and Grover called Bessie to them in order to ensure that he was okay. "Smart Percy strikes again," Leo cried out. No, Grover was there, too," Nico said reassuringly. Percy grumbled in annoyance. "That's no guarantee," Naruto retorted before wrestling Talia's spear from her grip and forcing it back into its mace container form. Talia glared at him for the action and he glared back before he spoke. "As it is, this motherfucker is the best chance we have at finding Artemis." The others stared at him and he sighed before explaining himself. Look, we have Bessie. We have the Bane of Olympus in our grasp. No offense, Osu-kun. Now we just gotta find Auntie Arte and hightail it back to New York in one day. Apollo quickly counted on his fingers. Yep, one day. So how do you plan to find her? Have Grover use his satyr magic on this thing's sock and find the last place he used the bathroom? Talia asked incredulously. At the question, Grover partially deflated. Satyr magic was more complicated than simple tracking. Most of the time, anyway. Harsh much? Piper asked, but Talia shrugged. I got something a little more intense in mind, Naruto said as he looked back at the twitching manticore. He looked back at Talia and offered her the mace canister, taking it back immediately when she reached for it. Under her glare, he managed to stay strong before he spoke. Don't kill him, yet. Talia narrowed her eyes before snatching the weapon from his grasp when offered to him again. She then stuck her finger in his face while glaring at him. You're so dead when this is all over, you got that? That's keyword for you are getting lucky, Tilda. Nico joked, and pulled Leo in front of him to take the punch aimed for him. Ow, dude, not cool, complained the son of Hephaestus. I love you, too, Talia-chan, Naruto shot back with a small smirk. Seriously, she threatens him, he flirts with her. What kind of dynamic is that? Leo asked confused. The best kind, sweetie, said a grinning Aphrodite. Talia glared at him for a second and pulled her arm back before a small smirk of her own came across her face. Thorn chose that minute to groan, causing the two to shift their gazes in his direction. We have to move, now, Naruto mumbled with Talia nodding in agreement. Monster interrogation, sweet. Ares grinned wildly. Man, this kid rocked. Thorn groaned and his head rolled around before his eyes blinked open. He was on a rundown rooftop of some building by the Frisco Bay. Looking down at an irritated patch of fur, he saw a small piece of paper on his chest and found that he was sitting in a wooden chair. He tried to lift his left arm up only for it to feel like he was trying to topple Typhoon with his bare hands. The same was for the rest of his body, including his tail. I can't help but wonder how those seals work, Athena admitted. A seal such as that would do well to keep our foes in their prisons. Like it? Thorn looked up and growled at the teen smiling at him from the other side of the room. Naruto flashed the manticore a smile before grabbing a nearby chair and walking closer to the slightly struggling monster. Setting the chair with the back facing the trapped monster, Naruto sat down, crossing his arms along the edge and resting his chin on them. You insufferable maggot, what magic is this? Demanded Thorn. Naruto tisked mockingly at the tone he was spoken to with. For shame, Dr. Thorn, replied the guardian of Hades' children with a shake of his head. I would have thought that you would be smart enough to act accordingly when in the presence of a shinobi. Guess you're purposely being kept in the dark by General Dumbass. Percy, Annabeth, and Talia snickered at the name. I'm going to enjoy feeding on your corpse, spat the manticore in rage. He does know that he is the one tied to the chair, right? Hazel asked with a raised eyebrow. Look at me, I'm shaking in my sandals, Naruto retorted with a smirk. His amusement died and his face became serious. You have 3 chances before I introduce you to the bad cop. Where's Artemis being held? Moritor antecum quicum tibi velum dico vobis primus molestus. I'll die before I tell you anything, you annoying brat. Thorn snarled before spitting in Naruto's face. Ouch, Percy winced, not fun stuff. The fiend, trying to mirror that handsome face. Oh, calm yourself, Aphrodite, he has vitokinesis, said Athena as she rolled her eyes at the raving love goddess. Aphrodite crossed her arms with a frown. It still doesn't excuse what could have happened. Well now, that was just rude, commented the blonde before he wiped the poisonous liquid from his face and rubbed his fingers. The spit burned slightly, but it wasn't as strong as being injected into the bloodstream. Naruto sighed and wiped the poison on his sleeve. Strike 1. Now please tell me where Lady Artemis is. I really hope you tell me soon. I already told you I will never bow to your whims. Filius Maliris meretrices facta est tibi. You son of a whore, growled Thorn with his teeth bared. Oh, he did not, Apollo shouted in anger. Naruto pursed his lips and his eyes hardened. Okay, You're starting to grate my nerves and I'm starting to regret letting you live this long. Well, he's hardened enough to not break his face in after that, Poseidon commented with pursed lips. The blonde abruptly stood up and tossed the chair aside, moving at inhuman, but possible for some demigods when trained correctly, speeds, wrapping his left hand around the manticore's throat and pushing him back by the edge. The chair tipped and Thorn felt gravity pull at the back of his head. You won't die from this fall, Naruto spat, nor will I kill you. Not yet. I want an answer, and I mean it. This is the last straw, Thorn. Where's my aunt? Artemis quirked a small smile at that while Apollo beamed proudly. I'd rather lay with your sow of a mother, Thorn spat. That son of a. You do realize she doesn't exist here. Hermes cut his brother off with an arched brow of amusement. Apollo opened and closed his mouth several times before crossing his arms and pouting. That does it, exploded the blonde, pulling the manticore's chair away from the edge. The blonde took a few steps back before grabbing his bracelet. He glared at the former educator and his eyes flashed blood red. Time for you to meet a friend of mine. So the spirit comes out to play, Apollo said with a void look on his face. Thorn looked away as a brighter red flash encased the area. A menacing aura, similar to that of his lord and the general, but much more diluted, filled the air. When the flash dissipated and Thorn could look once more, his heterochromatic eyes met with two black sclera with red irises gleaming in anticipation. Hello Bug, the owner of the eyes said. My name is Kyubi, and I want to play a game. Saw, Leo pointed out with glee. He loved that movie, so many machines that killed. Behind him, Naruto smacked a hand over his face. He never should have rented those movies. Sure, they were good, but as time went on they just became more gore porn, something his former tenant thought was amazing. Of course the Chaos Spirit would think they were amazing, Athena mocked. Naruto really wasn't into it, but he did sympathize with the antagonist. Call him a bleeding heart, but a good deep sob story always got some sympathy from the empathetic ex-Jinchuriki. Though Naruto did wonder why his dad let this cancer thing run amok. Apollo whistled innocently at that one, ignoring some of the curious glares the demigods sent his way. Maybe next time they met he could get him to answer that. Naruto's attention deviated from something his father was letting go ham on humanity when Thorn released a roar of pain. Looking over, the blonde demigod shook his head when he saw what his shield spirit had started to do. Thorn roared in agony as the new torturer, this Kyubi, began using a rusted bronzed hacksaw to cut off his left leg just above the ankle. The demigods, besides Nico and Hazel, turned a bit green. This was beyond sadistic, this was evil. Where did he even get that saw in the first place? Misform? Hades hazarded a guess. And, there goes the tendon, Kyubi said with a laugh before he cleaned his mask of the stray blood while Thorn alternated between growling and whimpering at his lost limb. Because of the material the weapon was made of, that leg wouldn't be growing back anytime soon. Kyubi radiated excitement and leaned into the manticore's face, slowly dragging the side of the hacksaw down his furred cheek. The red-eyed fox then asked, "Where's the goddess of the moon?" "Never. I'll never tell you," Thorn said with a growl. The red eyes seemed to shine happily and Thorn briefly regretted his decision. "I honestly don't blame him," Percy mumbled. "Oh goody, then our little game gets to continue," chortled the masked entity before he dropped the hacksaw and pulled out two items, an iron tong and a box cutter with celestial bronze as the blade. The fox set the box cutter aside and clicked the tongs together before he chuckled out, "Open wide and say, aw." "Read faster please," Piper asked Annabeth, looking ready to let out her snacks. Naruto gagged and covered his mouth before turning away. That little bit of torture was something his friend picked up last Halloween when they saw the movie Hostel. Talk about flat-out gore. It was in that theater that Naruto learned he was queasy when it came to torture and well-done special effects. "Oh, good, we're not the only ones," Talia said dryly. A few minutes later and Kyubi leaned away, mask caked in blood and a reddened muscle dangled from the tongs. Thorn was thrashing about in his chair, whimpering and groaning as his tongue regenerated. Some see immortality as a plus, but in this instance, it was a curse. especially if the same form of pain could be dealt out again and again. The perfect thing to aid in torturing someone, the god of the dead nodded in agreement. Thorn's will was crumbling, but when Kyuubi retrieved the box cutter, Naruto knew they'd have the information the group wanted in mere minutes. He had to leave the roof and regroup though. The finale was something Naruto would wish on no man. Monsters, however, were free game. Something Kyuubi would abuse whenever he got the chance. I could use another hand around Tartarus, Hades mused. Taliah looked up as Naruto walked out of the abandoned building, wiping the back of his hand over his mouth. Zoe and Phoebe approached him before the daughter of Zeus could get the chance. Zoe opened her mouth to ask the inevitable question when Naruto cut her off with a raised hand. There was a shrill yowl and mad cackling laughter. Naruto groaned in discomfort and shook his head before looking at his right. The others followed his gaze and were not that surprised when Kyuubi appeared from a cloud of red smoke. However, his appearance was concerning. Fresh blood caked his mask and dampened his fur, and then there was the gleeful shine in his unnerving red eyes. This thing is a freak, Taliah shivered. Great, her other was going to have to deal with him if she stuck around with Naruto. The goddess of the hunt is where the sky tries to touch Mother Earth, Kyuubi said to the blonde guardian. Okay, did he tell you before or after you cut his dick off? Naruto inquired, making Grover and Percy pale while Taliah, Zoe and Phoebe all stared at the entity in surprise. Every male in the room winced and shifted uncomfortably, feeling some form of sympathy. Kyuubi merely gave his former host a sinister chuckle. He squealed the second my blade touched him. I did it anyway, after all. Not many can boast to having a manticore by the balls. Mwahahaha. He is right, Ares pointed out, getting a few distasteful looks. While the others blanched at the laughter, Naruto groaned in discomfort and rubbed at his forehead. Just go kill him. With gusto, cheered the fox as he vanished in a plume of red smoke. A second later there was a bunch of Greek curses being thrown around and some light sobbing. The screaming became frantic before it all ended. Kyuubi reappeared with a vial in hand and he offered it to the blonde teen. A manticore's venom, Naruto mumbled before nodding at his partner. Thanks Q, you saved us a lot of time. Excellent poison to lace an arrow with, Artemis stated. Oh, it was my pleasure, kid, snickered out Kyuubi with a hidden grin before he became smoke once more and fled into Naruto's ever-present bracelet. Naruto looked at the vial in his hand and sighed. Well, at least one of us knows where to go. What do you mean? We don't know anything, Percy said in confusion. Where does the sky touch the earth? Oh Percy, Annabeth groaned lightly. My great-great-grandfather, yours and Taliah-chan's great-grandfather, doesn't touch his wife anymore, Naruto replied with a sigh. His children made sure of that at their mother's request. I guess we could debate that the one good thing we see in the Titans is their loyalty to their mother, something you show strong similarities to, Jackson. Snickers were heard after that one. Knowing what he was talking about, Percy blushed in embarrassment. Taliah just snorted, TCH, Mama's boy. Shut up Taliah, Percy grumbled. Ah, go charge a lamp, Percy repeated hotly. So what if he was? Didn't mean Taliah had to point it out. Hey, Taliah shouted, go fill a pool, Baywatch. There shall be no fighting between us, Zoe said sternly while Naruto snickered at Percy's retort. Seems like he was brushing off on the kid. Is that good? Nico wondered. Maybe Tilda, Annabeth giggled, making Percy glower. The lieutenant of the hunters looked at the blonde teen with a frown. Get to the point, Uzumaki. I should be saying the same thing to you, Naruto shot back with a smile. After all, you know where that place is best. He's not wrong there, Percy mumbled, getting nods from Annabeth, Taliah and Artemis. Zoe opened her mouth and closed it before glaring at him. Thou made an oath on the sticks. She has a point, Hades mumbled before glaring at his brothers. Not that it stopped others from breaking their oath. I did, confirmed Naruto, making the others confused at their half-conversation. He grinned sheepishly. I said I wouldn't tell anyone. I never said anything about hinting to it. You have to speak up now, Zoe-chan. Keeping them all in the dark anymore will cause us problems later on. Oh, Zoe just got handled. Taliah laughed. It was really enjoyable to see the elder hunter thrown off her game. Zoe bit her bottom lip before sighing and glaring once more at the blonde. Damn thou to Hades, Uzumaki. Been there, done that, Naruto replied with a shrug after crossing his arms. And he's so smug about it, Taliah shook her head. Hades huffed a bit. Not many could say that. He should consider himself lucky. Sure, it was a dick move to put her on the spot like that, but if he hadn't sworn on the sticks he wouldn't have had to. He should probably think long and hard before he ever makes an oath like that again. Indeed, nephew, Artemis said as she frowned. Stealing her resolve, Zoe took a breath before she started to explain her past. She spoke of how she was a Hesperide, banished for assisting a demigod with his quest. Percy, recalling a dream he had a few nights prior, asked if she was talking about Herc the Jerk, as Naruto was adamant about calling him. Hera smiled at that. Stifling a smile at the nickname and at Naruto's grumbles of arrogant muscle-headed idiots, Zoe continued to explain that the Hesperides were nymphs of the dawn and their home could only be accessed by outsiders at that time. Taliah spoke up after hearing that. We've got the son of Apollo on our side. Can't he ask his daddy dearest to keep our windows open? I don't do those kind of requests. Got a song, sure, but not the son, Apollo said informatively. Rolling his eyes, Naruto replied, Dad's also pulling the moon behind his chariot since Auntie Arte can't command her reindeer to do so. It's disturbing how much you know about Our Lady sometimes, Phoebe commented with a look to the blonde. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. We bonded during our time training. Sue me. Aphrodite cooed at the huntress, who looked slightly flushed, and Apollo was grinning at her. If that's the case, then we have a window of maybe 45 minutes to get on the island, Grover mumbled before he was given stares of disbelief. The satyr blushed and rubbed his arm. Well, you know, Hesperides are nymphs and being a satyr, aka nymph stalker, you know all that you can, right? Teased Naruto as he leaned against the building. Typical Grover, Annabeth said, but she didn't sound annoyed. He's got a point, G-man, Percy said with an equally teasing grin. Grover sat down on the steps next to Bessie and mumbled, You guys suck, you know that? Enough of the horseplay, Zoe interjected with a frown. The satyr is correct. We have a small window to get onto the island, but we can't do that and keep an eye on the Ophiuchus. For all we know, it could be a trap. Wise words, Athena said with a small smile. Artemis smirked proudly. She's got a point, reluctantly admitted Taliah with a grimace before looking at the creature currently getting pet by Grover. The power Bessie offers is too tempting to leave unguarded. To someone like you, Percy teased the hunter. Taliah flushed. Hey, I didn't do it, you know, so back off, Sea Cow Whisperer. We have three options then, Naruto chimed in after opening his eyes. First option. We storm the island and leave Osu-kun alone. Bad choice, Percy said immediately. Second, we split up into two groups and make ourselves easier targets. Worst choice, Taliah deadpanned. Or we go with the third option. Third option? Percy repeated. The blonde nodded and looked at the creature and Grover. Option 3 is that we send Bessie and Grover to Poseidon, stated the blonde with a furrowed brow. Grover can make sure Poseidon receives Bessie safely with his blessing, and he'll be out of harm's way as well. Well gee, I wonder which one they go with, Ares asked sarcastically. What's that supposed to mean? Grover asked with a frown. Gee man, you and I both know that Naruto's looking out for ya. Percy placated his friend with a reassuring pat on the shoulder. And I know you were about to suggest it before he brought it up. You know him too well, Annabeth said to her boyfriend with a smirk. Grover relented. With the empathetic link, Percy must have sensed his unease at going to the island. Not that it was cowardice, oh no, but something deep ingrained in the satyr's instincts were ordering him to get out of Dodge. Nodding in agreement with Percy, Naruto then continued with a groan. But just doing that puts us under watch by Raijiji and other Olympians. Lord Hades notwithstanding. Why wouldn't Hades care? Doesn't he want to rule? Percy asked. Naruto glanced at him. Did you forget why your uncle kidnapped your mother and that he was framed as well? Asked the oldest demigod, getting the raven-haired demigod to sheepishly back off. Poseidon glared at his elder brother, who ignored the glare. Naruto then looked back at the Ophiuchus. Lord Hades has enough on his plate to worry about the affairs of his surface dwellers. Oh yes, indeed, Hades bemoaned as he rubbed his temples. Which dost thou propose, then? Zoe inquired urgently, her ingrained loyalty practically screaming to get a move on. Oh Zoe, Artemis smiled fondly. Phoebe was doing no better, already gripping her bow tighter and shifting from one foot to the other. Like a PP dance, Leo pointed out in amusement that Artemis and Talia did not share with him. Naruto hummed before shaking his head. Option 3 is our best bet, but it's going to take a whole lot more than satyr magic to make sure Bessie gets out safe. A prayer? Percy asked. Talia shook her head. Not just that, but a sacrifice, too, she said before looking at Naruto. What are you going to give up? Say goodbye to the jacket, Percy said with a shake of his head. I doubt any of us have something that the squid god would want, explained the guardian. Poseidon grumbled at the name as his brothers and Athena laughed at it. It was not true. He looked at Percy's wrists, but I'm sure a gift from his son would always be welcomed. And 2 daggers capable of cutting through anything would be very impressive. Wait, he hasn't even used them, Talia exclaimed, the only chance for Percy to not have a cursed weapon, and he gives them up before he even uses them. You are an idiot. I'm not, the waterboy pouted, but those daggers did sound cool. They can do that? Percy nearly shouted, before looking at the wristbands on either wrist. Man, if I had known that sooner. It's probably better if you didn't, Naruto mumbled. Agreed, Athena said with a nod, like a child needs something like that, especially Percy Jackson. Jason idly wondered if the lion reformed yet. Before looking at Zoe, sound good? Definitely better than running headfirst into the battle without a plan, Phoebe muttered, and Naruto winced at the unintentional jab. Even in the new life he couldn't escape his idiotic moments. Percy looked at Talia and said, say it, come on. You've had yours, too. Talia closed her open mouth. Percy nodded happily. Then let's do it, Talia said as she brushed her hand over her mace canister. Looking at her cousin, the raven-haired girl asked, you game? Only if Grover's okay with backing out, Percy immediately replied as he slipped off the wristbands and looked at his friend. For his own safety, Percy reaffirmed with a nod. The satyr grinned and patted a crooning Ophiuchus on the head between his horns. I'd like to see them try to stop us. Then we're all agreed? Zoe inquired, getting a round of nods. Naruto pushed off the wall and pulled out a kunai. Cutting the palm of his hand, Naruto looked at the other members of his group. I swear on the sticks that by the time the sun centers in the sky Anti-Arte will be back home and our quest will be over without a single death, Naruto announced with determination, fueling his words and a distant thunder rumbling throughout the sky. Bold, Athena stated with narrowed eyes. Nah, gutsy, Ares stated with a grin on his scarred face. This was an oath he'd never regret making, one he believed to the fullest that he could hold. His eyes shining just as bright as the sun, the blonde continued, and I never break my word, for that is my ninja way. Why does it sound like he said that before, a lot? Annabeth inquired as she lowered the book from her eyes. Awesome, my kid has a catchphrase, Apollo cheered out. Frank was relaxed. He really needed that, he thought as he entered Ohio. He traveled swiftly through the crowded area in Cleveland, as some monsters saw him. With a curse he jumped into a crowd of tourists. Right this way, good sirs and ladies, the voice of an annoying woman called out as the group of tourists he was with moved into a glass triangle building. Annabeth would like this, the shape-shifter muttered to himself as it was a cool-looking building. Welcome to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Well, that sounds like fun, Frank said with a smile. Be sure to have your ticket, folks. Aw, sticks. He was